So then tell me, what's going on here? Have you seen anything like this before?
A launch title for a PS4, Knack takes the reign as a new IP for Sony aimed at younger audiences. But is it worth playing? Well, I'll take a crack at not making fun of the title. The game takes place in a world where humans and goblins uneasily coexist. When goblins attack a human outpost for relics, which is the world's mysterious energy source, a genius inventor introduces our titular hero Knack, who can use the relics to grow larger and fight off the invaders.
You call it Knack, is that right?
Actually, I call myself Knack.
Relying on a textbook full of tropes, the plot doesn't go anywhere unexpected. Instead, it delivers layers of cliches and cardboard cutouts of character archetypes. There are a couple of plot threads, including Knack's origins and the racial tension between the humans and goblins, that get very lightly teased, but never fully explored.
You drove us from our cities and into the wilderness. Were we supposed to just stay there forever?
Typical goblin, always living in the past.
Even though he was just one-liners and assertive quips, I enjoyed Knack's character the most, but I wish he showed more emotion and character development than just being the cool-headed protagonist in a buddy cop film. But as you'll see, he's one bad mother.
Can do. Let's take this to the garden. There's a bit more room. Ooh, I'm getting chills. Naughty, naughty. I'll warn you, I'm not in the most patient of moods. Let's go get the doctor. Might run into your girlfriend, too, while we're at it.
You think I'm clever, right?
The adventure doesn't stay limited to one location, though, as the game takes you on a roundabout tour of the world in various settings that change in scope depending on your ever-growing and shrinking size. Each area features a variety of enemies that have their own bit of quirky personality, including my favorite, Burnout Bug. The varied set pieces are complemented by the colorful visuals that stay nice between gameplay and cinematics, only jumping to pre-rendered cutscenes on a rare basis. Although you can tell them apart because this guy's hair is darker when it's pre-rendered. The game mostly sticks around 30 FPS, but can take noticeable drops, especially when your character is massive. The many particles that make up Knack, though, is a pretty cool effect, and a subtle growth throughout each stage can often surprise you, as one moment you'll be half the size of one enemy, and then 5 minutes later he's barely a speck. The combat can be quickly described as simple, but challenging. Knack only has one attack button, and then 3 special attacks that use a limited resource. The enemies, while easy to telegraph one-on-one, can take you down in 2 hits, if not kill you instantly, so any slip-up in the game's many encounters can spell your destruction. Enemies will dodge frequently, and the game's few boss encounters are enjoyable, if not a bit too drawn out. Like Zombie U, the simple combat gets you trained to the feel and timing of your melee attack. Like God of War, your right joystick is mapped to dodging in any direction, so timing your flourishes is key to survival. And like Katamari Damacy, your size affects your speed and jumping ability, so being flexible to the situation is going to make the ride a little less bumpy.
I'd never have guessed.
Checkpoints are usually several enemy waves apart, giving the game a very nostalgic requirement of patience and skill found in older games. Of course, after dying many times, players might either give up in frustration, or they'll get good enough to beat the section with a sense of shattered satisfaction. I personally found it a little refreshing since, God forbid, I'd be punished for being bad at video games a little bit. But to each their own here. The checkpoints sometimes do place you right in front of lengthy door opening sequences or in inconvenient situations, and boss fights have to be done in one go, so more attention to testing would have been appreciated in these sections. Putting the game on easy mode or adding a second player with Knack's drop-in co-op greatly reduces the challenge. Changing the difficulty also changes the obstacles into platforming sections, so props there for not just increasing enemy damage, although they did do that too. In co-op mode, a second player controls Robo-Knack, who can heal the first player and spawn as much as he likes. If you have someone who can't play video games very well, he's heavily recommended for beginners. And an unintended side effect is that real Knack can just sit back and let Robo-Knack do most of the work, since there's no penalty for player 2 dying. A big technical gripe that comes from co-op is that the camera is always fixated on player 1, often leaving your Robo-Buddy off-screen somewhere to die. The camera problems carry over to standard game as well, as frequent shifts reminiscent to the PSX era of gaming often lead to awkward transitions and regular deaths. Constant tasks like jumping off a cliff or riding an elevator break up the flow of gameplay regularly. Instead of keeping on the exciting flow of punching in enemies, you're constantly being reminded where you are on the map. In a game as linear as this, it's not exactly necessary to show me, oh, I'm still in the same place. You also get elemental powers in the game that add some cool particle effects, and they do get involved in some puzzles, but they don't affect the feel of your character during combat, outside of running over enemies while you're on fire, for one very brief section.
I present to you, Stealth Knack.
Very nice.
In terms of extra content, being the game unlocks stage selection, time trials, and a harder difficulty. You can also collect gadgets and crystals throughout hidden areas in the game. The former gives you straight upgrades to your abilities, and the latter unlocks new forms for Knack after beating the game. Since the drops are randomized, you'll probably collect enough parts for a few abilities at the end of the game if you're lucky. And if you're fortunate enough to have friends with the game, or unfortunate enough, you can also collect components from them as well. But pro tip, what I actually recommend is a simple app called Knack Quests, which is a match 3 puzzle game. You can unlock collectibles in this rather easily, and they transfer over to the real game. In the end, Knack serves his purpose with a trek that's over 10 hours long. Combat is enjoyable, but can be frustrating if you aren't prepared for it. Everything plot-wise is a little soulless and cookie-cutter. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but don't expect any exciting twists.
Stealth Knack is back.
Yeah!
Visuals work most of the time, and I can't remember any of the music. It pretty much strikes the middle ground in every way possible. For $60, that's a high asking price for this adventure, but if you're looking for a title that can hold over the kids this holiday, it's poppable at a heavy discount. As for me, I do see a lot of good ideas that can be fleshed out into a really great sequel, but they just barely got over halfway there with this first step. Knick Knack Paddywhack, 3 out of 5. Oops! Ugh, darn it! Alright, sorry, I made fun of the title, didn't I? Okay, let's take it from the top. Ready? Alright. Knack is a PS4 title that is...
Now you make sure you're long gone before the fireworks start.
All right. I'm going already.
Go on.